For most of human history, conspiracies are not theories, they're real. They're whispered in palace corridors lit by trembling oil lamps, hidden behind sealed doors while servants pretend not to hear. Written in hurried letters, spoken in lowered voices, buried beneath loyalty, fear, and ambition. A queen leans close in the dark and quietly speaks of removing a king. A messenger rides across desert sands carrying words no one else is supposed to read. A soldier in Sparta hears dangerous whispers from men who have spent their entire lives unseen. In Rome, powerful men gather beneath torchlight and convince themselves history is about to bend to their will. And somewhere beneath the streets of London, in the damp dark beneath stone and timber, barrels await in silence. And for thousands of years, conspiracy means something simple. A secret plan. Usually violent and usually political. And also usually involving somebody powerful who wakes up one morning having absolutely no idea that someone nearby has already decided it's their time to go. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most of the time, those conspiracies worked. Sometimes they failed spectacularly, and sometimes the story survives long after the truth disappears. Because over time, conspiracy changes. Kings and emperors stop being the only targets. Governments grow larger. Institutions become more powerful. Corporations stretch across continents. Secrets stop hiding only inside palaces and begin hiding inside offices, laboratories, boardrooms, locked filing cabinets, and phone calls no one thinks will ever be heard. A burglary in the middle of the night, a classified program few are supposed to know exists. A company quietly cheating millions while convincing the world everything is perfectly normal. An organization slipping people into places they were never supposed to be. And eventually, something else happens. People stop just uncovering conspiracies and they begin imagining them. Some turn out to be horrifyingly real. Others collapse the moment evidence enters the room. And some become so powerful that even after they're disproven, people still refuse to let them die. So tonight, we're going back to the beginning, to torch smoke and whispered promises, secret meetings, betrayals, paranoia, ambition, and fear, to the long, strange history of conspiracy itself.
I walk through silence, thick and cold, where shadows drift and time grows old. No voice to call, no path to take, just fog and fear with every ache. Souls in the fog.
Hot air hangs heavy against the stone. The smell of oil, sweat, incense, and river mud drifts through the halls of an empire older than memory. Somewhere inside the palace of Egypt, a story begins to unfold. Oil lamps tremble against painted limestone columns. Linen curtains stir in the slow movement of the air drifting in from the Nile. Sand scratches softly beneath sandals as servants move through corridors with lowered eyes, carrying water, wine, incense, messages, never lingering too long, never asking questions. Because in a palace like this, questions can be dangerous. Egypt stands at the height of power. Armies march beneath royal banners. Temples rise from stone. Tribute flows inward, and at the center of it all sits a man believed to stand somewhere between king and God, the Pharaoh. But power has a problem. It ages. And now, sometime near the end of the reign of Pharaoh Ramesses III, something shifts inside the palace walls, not openly. It's never open. No soldiers gather at the gates, no rival kingdom marches toward Egypt. Instead, danger arrives the way conspiracies usually do, quietly, behind closed doors and whispers, in rooms lit just bright enough for people to recognize each other and deny everything later. A secondary queen, known to history as Tiye, appears to believe her son deserves something he is unlikely to receive: the throne. The problem is simple. He's not first in line. Another heir stands ahead of him, and in royal courts, succession disputes have a way of turning private resentment into public catastrophe. Now imagine the atmosphere. Servants who hear fragments of conversations and immediately forget them. Officials suddenly speaking in softer voices. Trusted members of the court disappearing behind closed chambers. People who should not be meeting anyways. We did not know every detail of what these rooms look like. History rarely grants us that luxury. The surviving evidence comes largely from the judicial records written after the fact. Records historians now call the Turin Judicial Papyrus, but the records suggest something chilling. This is not just a rumor. This is an organization, a plan that's beginning to form. Among court officials, servants, and military men, women inside the royal household, messengers, 70 or more people were involved in this, all allegedly drawn into something secret, not merely dissatisfaction, but conspiracy. And according to the surviving accounts, the goal is breathtakingly dangerous. Remove the pharaoh himself. Not embarrass or undermine him, kill him. Somewhere, inside the palace, while lamps flicker and incense burns sweet against the stale heat of the enclosed rooms, trusted people are already choosing sides. And the terrifying thing? Ramesses III doesn't even know it yet. And the whisper spreads. It moves the way dangerous things move. Behind hands, between trusted faces, inside rooms where doors close softly and lamps burn low. Queen Tiye waits. Somewhere inside the palace, linen rustles as servants move in silence around her chambers. Resin smoke curls from shallow bowls. Gold catches soft firelight against the painted walls. And she believes her son should rule. At least that's what the men and women begin quietly telling themselves. But Egypt doesn't care what someone deserves. Egypt cares who stands in line. And another son stands closer to the throne. So the conversations begin. A court official lingers longer than he should. A servant pauses beside a doorway. A messenger leaves at night instead of in the morning. A soldier who swore loyalty to the pharaoh suddenly finds himself listening instead of speaking. You can almost feel the tension settling over the palace like dust. No one says too much. No one says names too loudly. But everyone understands the shape of the thing that is forming in front of them. There is no argument about succession anymore. This is about removal. And in ancient Egypt, removing a pharaoh means stepping into something terrifying. Because Pharaoh is not just the king. He is order itself. The bridge between gods and men, the rising of the Nile, the balance of the world. If you fail, punishment will not merely be death. It will be obliteration. Still, the conspiracy grows. Inside shattered stone and mud brick rooms, plans form. Some are whispering strategy and others are whispering fear. Wax figures appear, small things, fragile things, shaped hands, shaped bodies, ritual words spoken softly in warm air, heavy with incense. Magic and politics sit side by side in this world. They are inseparable. Someone mutters curses against enemies. Someone prays protection over the conspirators. Someone else probably lies awake wondering whether betrayal already waits somewhere in the dark. And meanwhile, life inside the palace continues. The servants pour wine, musicians play, and petitions are heard. The machinery of empire turns as though nothing beneath is cracking at all. And that is the frightening thing about conspiracies. To everyone outside of them, the world looks perfectly normal. Until it suddenly isn't. And then one night, something breaks. A whisper reaches the wrong ears. A secret slips. A trusted face becomes afraid. The door opens harder than usual. Sandaled feet move quickly through the corridors. Guards stop asking permission. The people start disappearing. No speeches, no dramatic warning. Just the terrible realization spreading from chamber to chamber. Someone knows. And once power knows fear, it moves fast. Very fast. Men who once walked palace halls freely now sit in guarded rooms under watchful eyes. Names are spoken, accusations spread. The atmosphere changes overnight. The smell of incense gives way to sweat. Fear replaces confidence. And somewhere in the middle of it all hangs one question no one dares to ask too loudly. What happened to the pharaoh? Outside, Egypt keeps breathing. The Nile rises and falls, and markets open, temple fires burn. Farmers argue and the merchants will haggle. Priests chant beneath their painted ceilings while the machinery of empire pretends nothing has changed. But inside the palace, fear settles in, heavy and sticky, like heat trapped between the stone walls. Men who once moved confidently through royal corridors now keep their heads low. Servants stop making eye contact. Conversations die the moment footsteps approach. Every sound suddenly means something. A sandal scraping stone, a voice behind a door, a sharp knock of a staff against a polished floor. Somewhere nearby, somebody is talking, and nobody knows who exactly is talking about whom. Then the trial begins. Not in chaos, no shouting. Begins in silence, measured and controlled. Officials gather, scribes sit ready, ink waits, and the accused are brought forward one at a time. Courtmen, servants, officials, those who only whispered, those who carried messages, those who stood too close to the wrong people at the wrong time. Faces once familiar inside palace walls now sit under watch, sweating in a stale air thick with oil smoke and tension. And nobody seems quite sure how much everyone else already knows. That's the terrible thing about conspiracies once they fail. Every ally suddenly looks like tomorrow's witness. Every shared secret feels dangerous. Who talked first? Who broke? Who traded loyalty for survival? You can almost picture the room. Someone staring at the floor, someone swallowing too hard, while another silently replaying every whispered meeting and realizing, with a growing horror, that they should never have trusted half of the people in that room. Names begin to spill out, the connections start to appear, and the circle widens. Then, punishment comes, cold and methodical. Some are condemned to death. Others are handed something stranger, permission to end themselves. Imagine hearing that sentence. Not freedom, not mercy, just the understanding that Egypt has decided that your story ends, and it is allowing you to choose how. Meanwhile, disgrace spreads beyond living. Some names are altered, twisted, reshaped into insults. This was an ancient cruelty common in Egypt for those they hated. As if execution wasn't enough, as if memory itself needed to be punished, so that future generations should spit when they speak your name. And hanging over all of this, every judgment, every punishment, every whispered accusation is the question that nobody inside the palace can stop circling. Did they succeed? Because something feels wrong, too urgent, too final. People move as if reacting to disaster, not preventing one. And somewhere, hidden behind royal walls and ritual silence, lies a truth Egypt will carry forward wrapped in secrecy. The king, the man conspirators gamble everything to remove, never speaks for himself again. Time moves strangely after something like this. Inside the palace, routines continue because they have to. Orders are spoken, and ceremonies are performed. Officials bow and the priests chant. But beneath it all runs something colder. An absence. The kind people notice without saying aloud. A missing voice. A room that's no longer entered. A strange silence that follows power when power suddenly stops moving. And yet nobody stands in the center of the court and announces the truth in some clean, dramatic moment. History almost never works that way. Instead, Egypt moves carefully and quietly. Because when a pharaoh falls, chaos waits at the edge of the room like an invited guest nobody wants to acknowledge. Succession matters now. Control matters. Keeping order matters. The throne cannot sit empty while rumors spread like fire through dry reeds. Somewhere in the middle of the confusion, one prince rises. Not Tiye's son. The other one. The one meant for the throne. The man history remembers as Ramesses IV. And if you're one of the conspirators still breathing, the realization lands like stone in your stomach. Because suddenly the future closes. The throne you gamble everything to reshape slips permanently out of reach. The wrong son wears the crown. The wrong future has arrived. Whatever hope existed inside meetings and midnight promises, it dies there. Now there are only consequences. Imagine it. Sitting in guarded silence, air thick with heat, your mouth dry, guard nearby pretending not to watch you. You replay every conversation in your mind, every door that closed, every whispered promise, every face. Who talked? Who betrayed whom? Was it fear? Loyalty? Was it greed? Did someone simply panic? Conspiracies feel powerful while they're happening. Afterward, they feel fragile, human, held together by frightened people pretending certainty. And over all of it hangs one terrible uncertainty. Did they actually kill a king? For centuries, that question would linger. The conspiracy survives in fragments, punishments, and accusations. A dead pharaoh, but no clean answer. No witness stepping forward to say, yes, this is how it happened. And then thousands of years later, silence opens. Modern machines hum softly in sterile light. No more torch smoke now, no incense, no palace heat. Just the quiet patience of science. The body of Ramesses III lies still beneath careful hands. Ancient linen, darkened skin, a king reduced to fragile evidence. And then, a scan reveals it. A wound, deep, catastrophic, across the throat. The kind of injury that ends arguments. The kind that changes a story. Suddenly, the palace feels different. The whispers, the meetings, the fear, the arrests, the punishments, all of it sharpens into focus. Because somewhere inside those palace walls, amid incense smoke and conspiracy and trembling loyalty, someone got close enough to a living pharaoh to cut his throat. And just like that, one uncomfortable truth announces itself at the beginning of our story. For most of history, conspiracies are not theories. Sometimes they work. Night settles over Thebes. The Nile moves black beneath moonlight, slow and silent, reflecting scattered torch fire from the riverbanks, palm fronds whispering in the warm air. Somewhere in the distance, a priest chants to sleeping gods, while dogs bark at shadows that no one bothers to investigate. Inside the palace of Kamose, sleep does not come easily. Oil lamps hiss softly against painted walls. The king stands awake. Kamose moves towards an open balcony, overlooking a dark ribbon of the river, linen stirring around his legs in the night air. Below him lies Upper Egypt, his Egypt, at least what remains of it. And that's the problem. It's only part of Egypt. To the north, beyond the river towns and the marshland, another king sits in power. Not an Egyptian, not native to the old dynasties. At Avaris in the Delta, the Hyksos rule, foreign kings of Canaanite origin who arrived generations earlier and entrenched themselves in Lower Egypt until what begins as outsiders becomes power. Their ruler now is called Apophis, a king seated in luxury while claiming land Kamose knows belongs to Egypt, his Egypt, and to the south another threat waits, the Kingdom of Kush, powerful, watching, and patient. Kamose lives trapped between rivals to the north and the south, with pressure everywhere, frustration turning to anger. Why should he sit quietly in Thebes while Egypt exists divided? Why should one ruler hold the south while a foreign king controls the north? Why should a pharaoh tolerate sharing a kingdom? Imagine the feeling. The humid night air, the smell of the oil smoke and the river mud, clenched jaw, hands tightening against carved stone as anger slowly hardens into decision. Kamose has decided, no, I've had enough. so he marches north. Boats cut the Nile, soldiers move with shields, spears, bows, and axes beneath the desert heat. Sand clings to the sweat, orders move down riverbanks in sharp bursts. Campfires flicker at night while stories spread between men who understand exactly what this campaign means. This is not a border dispute, this is reclamation. And far to the north, in Avaris, Apophis learns Kamose is coming. The palace here, it feels different. Less old Egyptian stone, more noise from trade, foreign tongues, movement, wealth pulled from roads and ports stretching outward into worlds beyond the Nile. And somewhere inside, Apophis makes calculations. Kamose is dangerous, not because he rules much, but because he wants more. Because men who believe they are reclaiming something lost are often harder to stop than men fighting merely to keep that power. And there's another problem. Kamose sits between enemies, which means enemies can become opportunities. Somewhere in quiet chambers lit by wavering lamp fire, decision forms. If Kamose pushes north, perhaps pressure should arrive from the south. A messenger is chosen, trusted and fast, someone who understands silence, someone who will not ask unnecessary questions. A sealed message leaves Avaris, its destination, the Kingdom of Kush. Its purpose, something dangerous enough that no one outside the room should ever know it exists. This messenger leaves before dawn. The mist is hanging low over parts of the river as the first pale light touches mud brick walls and sleeping fields. Somewhere behind him, Avaris slowly wakes, dock workers shouting, animals stirring, merchants cursing the heat already gathering in the air. He does not look back. The message rides close, protected and sealed. A thing small enough to disappear beneath linen, but important enough to start a war. He travels south, sometimes by boat, drifting with practiced caution along stretches of the Nile, and sometimes on foot, where caution matters more than speed. Everywhere, Egypt feels uneasy. Villages whisper rumors. Kamose is moving. Soldiers are moving. A native king in Thebes is marching north against the Hyksos, and people living between powers have learned something useful about survival. Keep your head down and wait to see who wins. The messenger says very little, sleeps lightly, and he avoids attention. A man carrying secrets learns quickly that ordinary conversation feels dangerous. Too many questions, too many eyes lingering for too long. And somewhere to the north, Kamose keeps moving. Camp smells cling to everything. Smoke, sweat, leather. Wet reeds crushed beneath sandals near the riverbank. Men sharpen bronze blades while muttering around low fires. Officers crouch over rough plans, scratched in dirt. Scouts come and go with dust still clinging to their legs. And Kamose pushes hard. Hard enough that word travels ahead of him like weather. Villages hear he is coming before they see him. And somewhere amid that movement, amid the patrols and uncertainty and frightened loyalties, someone notices something. A traveler, going in the wrong direction, wrong timing. He's being too careful. Maybe he avoids soldiers too quickly. Maybe a scout caught sight of him slipping off familiar routes. Maybe his fear gives him away. Whatever the reason, eyes begin to follow him. At first from a distance, and then closer. Dust rises behind moving feet. The voices stay low. There's no shouting, no dramatic chase through the dunes, just growing certainty. This man matters. Then comes the moment every courier carrying dangerous information fears. Hands seize him. Sharp command, bronze glinting in the sun. Messenger freezes. They search him. The air suddenly feels hotter, drier, and heavier. Somewhere nearby, the Nile moves quietly, indifferent. A seal appears, hidden and protected, official and wrong, very wrong. The kind of thing ordinary travelers do not carry. This suddenly stops being suspicion, now it becomes discovery. The message is brought forward to Kamose, a king already angry enough to wage war. A man who now holds in his hands proof that someone behind him and someone ahead of him may already be speaking in secret. The seal breaks the soft crack, and for a moment nobody speaks. Morning heat presses against the camp. Flies circle lazily near the tethered animals, and somewhere behind the king, soldiers argue over rations, completely unaware that history may have just shifted in the space of a folded message. Kamose reads his message once, and then again. The easy confidence of command drains from the faces nearest him as they watch something harden in his eyes. Because this is not some routine report, neither tribute nor surrender. This is Apophis reaching out to the south. The Hyksos king of Avaris, foreign ruler of Lower Egypt, a man Kamose already considers an occupier, quietly sending word toward Kush, toward another king, another enemy. The message lays out the situation plainly enough to chill the room. Kamose is moving. Kamose is disrupting both kingdoms. Kamose threatens the balance. And if Kush rises while Kamose marches north, pressure comes from both directions, and the native king in Thebes may find himself trapped between enemies closing like crocodile jaws. Picture that realization. The dry rasp of papyrus between his fingers, camp smoke curling into bright morning air, officers shifting uneasily nearby, trying to read Kamose's expression and failing. Someone quietly stops speaking, someone swallowing hard, because suddenly this campaign looks different. This is no longer merely a king reclaiming territory. This is a man walking into the possibility of being surrounded. To the north, Apophis and the Hyksos. To the south, Kush and the eye shooters. And somewhere between them, Kamose, the true pharaoh, the one ruler with an army, a narrow ribbon of Egypt stretched between enemies who may already be whispering to one another in secret. Kamose lowers the letter. For a long second, he says nothing. Just the sound of the Nile, canvas moving softly in the warm wind, distant clatter of armor. And then anger. Cold anger. Not shouting. Not panic. The quiet kind that settles into a person and stays there. Because now the insult feels personal. Not only foreign rulers sitting on Egyptian land, not only division, now secret messages move behind his back? Now enemies speak in whispers while he marches openly? Imagine standing there, dust sticking to sweat, watching your king stare at proof that two powers may already be discussing how best to crush him. You would feel it too, that uncomfortable tightening low in your stomach, the realization that somebody somewhere has been planning your death. And yet, this is the weakness of conspiracies. They depend on silence, on timing, on luck. One intercepted messenger, one unlucky encounter on a road, one frightened man searching at the wrong moment, and suddenly, secrecy collapses. The letter never reaches Kush. The warning never arrives. The alliance, if it was to exist at all, dies here beside the Nile in the hands of the very man it was meant to destroy. Kamose folds the message, and he looks north, toward Apophis and Avaris, toward a king who now knows something dangerous, someone has been plotting in the dark, and they failed to keep it hidden. The camp changes after that, not loudly and not all at once, but the men feel it. Commanders are called closer, voices lower, maps, if they can even be called maps, are scratched into dirt with the ends of spears. River routes, settlements, supply lines, distance measured not in miles, but in how long tired men can march beneath the brutal sun. Kamose stands over it all, and the papyrus sits nearby, folded and waiting. Proof. His proof that while he marches north to reclaim Egypt, Apophis sits in Avaris, quietly reaching south, trying to turn enemies into partners. And you can almost imagine the insult of it. A native king fighting to reunite his country, and somewhere beyond sight, a foreign ruler writing letters behind closed doors, asking another power to squeeze him from the opposite side. No wonder Kamose burns with anger. The stela later remembers something of that fury. A divided Egypt offends him. One ruler in Avaris, another in Kush, and himself in Thebes. The king surrounded. The king expected to accept it. But no, not anymore. The messenger is no longer merely a traveler now. He is evidence. A living crack in somebody else's secret. Did he panic when questioned? Did he stay silent? Did he understand the danger of what he carried before rough hands found that seal? We don't have every detail, but somewhere in the middle of the dust, the heat, and soldiers smelling of leather and river water, Kamose now possesses something kings value almost as much as armies: knowledge. He knows Apophis is worried. He knows Apophis does not trust Kamose to remain contained. And most important, he knows the North is now speaking to the South, quietly and secretly. The kind of thing rulers do when they fear what's coming next. Imagine Kamose that night, campfires snapping in the darkness, bronze catching orange light, the Nile whispering nearby with insects singing in the reeds. And somewhere beyond the edge of camp, men laugh too loudly, pretending war feels smaller than it does. But near the king's fire, the mood is different. The messenger's letter rests beside him. The conspiracy sits in physical form, not rumor, not suspicion. Words. Sealed words on paper. A plan interrupted. Sometimes history changes because armies clash. Sometimes kings fall, and sometimes everything shifts because one exhausted courier takes the wrong road at the wrong time, and he gets stopped by the wrong soldiers. Kamose looks north again, toward Avaris, toward his unfinished business. The foreign ruler has already moved his pieces, quietly and carefully. No, Kamose intends to answer. Openly. Morning comes on hot, the kind of heat that settles early and promises to punish anyone wearing bronze by midday. Kamose wastes little time. Boats push north again, their hulls cutting dark water while soldiers crouch beneath the sun, shields stacked, bows wrapped against damp river air. Oars creak, commands travel low and sharp across the current. The intercepted message changed everything. Before this, the campaign felt like reclamation. Now it feels urgent, because the foreign usurper isn't waiting, he's planning. And a king who plans in secret is rarely planning peace. As Kamose advances, the Nile narrows into strategy. Fortified points matter, river access matters, and loyalty matters. Some settlements submit quickly, others hesitate. People living in divided Egypt learned caution generations ago. A farmer watching soldiers pass doesn't cheer. A merchant does not choose sides too loudly. Too many rulers, too many banners. Too much risk in backing the wrong king. But Kamose keeps pressing. He goes northward toward Hyksos territory, toward Avaris, and toward the man who sends sealed letters south while pretending distance will protect him. At camp, officers talk quietly over food gone cold. Avaris feels closer somehow, not physically, psychologically. Before the letters, Apophis was an enemy king far in the north. Now he becomes something more intimate, a rival moving pieces in shadows, a conspirator, a man trying to tighten pressure around Kamose's throat without ever lifting a weapon himself. And somewhere in Avaris, whether he knows it yet or not, Apophis waits for an answer that never comes. No rider appears from Kush, no reassuring word arrives, no confirmation that southern pressure is building against Thebes, just silence. Imagine this frustration, a sealed gamble sent south into uncertainty and days passing, nothing. Because conspiracies do have an ugly weakness. You rarely know when they fail. Maybe the message is delayed. Maybe Kush is hesitating. Maybe someone refused to cooperate. Or maybe, though Apophis can't know it yet, the whole thing dies in the dust beside the Nile under Kamose's eyes. And Kamose himself? He carries the knowledge forward. The king of Thebes no longer marches merely against occupation. He marches with his proof that Egypt is being negotiated around, proof that foreign rulers and rival kingdoms are willing to speak behind closed doors about his future and the future of his country. For a man already furious at division, this feels like confirmation. The North cannot be trusted. A fracture? This cannot stand. One king, one Egypt. Or endless plots. And that's the thing conspiracies often do to rulers. Even failed ones. They harden resolve. Because once you discover enemies whispering in secret, every hesitation starts to feel dangerous. Every delay feels expensive. So Kamose presses on, toward unfinished war, toward Avaris, toward a divided kingdom that, for the moment at least, is still held together by suspicion, ambition, and intercepted secrets. The days pass. The river keeps moving north, and so does Kamose. Word spreads ahead of him now, faster than boats ever could. The Theban king is coming. The native king. The angry one. The one who refuses to sit quietly in the south while foreign rulers sit in Lower Egypt and bargain behind closed doors. The villages feel tense. Doors close earlier. Conversations stop when soldiers appear. No one knows exactly how large Kamose's force feels because armies always seem bigger in rumor. 20 men become 200. 200 become thousands. Fear does the counting. And fear, it travels quickly. At night, campfires stretch beside the Nile like fallen stars. The smell of roasting grain mixes with sweat, wet reeds, smoke, and river mud. Men repair straps, archers check bowstrings, someone laughs too loudly at a joke that's not very funny. War, it makes people strange. Nearby, officers are speaking in lowered voices. The intercepted letter returns to conversation again and again. You can almost imagine fingers tapping rough wood or tracing lines into dirt. If Kush moves, if Apophis delays us, if they coordinate, the possibilities sit there like invisible guests around every fire. And Kamose listens. Watching flamelight flicker across bronze, watching men glance north, because here is the uncomfortable truth. The conspiracy may fail, but the danger still remains. Apophis is still there. Kush is still there. The message is intercepted, yes, but intent matters. And intent lingers. A ruler willing to secretly build alliances against you today may try something worse tomorrow. So Kamose stops thinking only about the campaign. Now he thinks about survival. Strike hard enough, move fast enough, and maybe the trap never closes. Maybe Kush never gets time, and somewhere far north in Avaris, Apophis waits. Still, no messenger, no reply, no rider appearing through dust carrying any reassurance for him. Just silence. The kind of silence that rulers hate. The kind that slowly turns confidence into unease. Because if you send a dangerous message and you hear nothing back, your mind starts doing ugly things. Did they refuse? Did someone betray me? Did Kamose learn something? Nobody likes uncertainty. Least of all, kings. And somewhere between Thebes and Avaris, between suspicion and war, one thing quietly becomes clear. This conspiracy, small though it seems, reveals something larger. Conspiracies are changing. Not only daggers in dark rooms, not only whispered plans to kill a ruler, now kings begin conspiring through distance, through letters, and through secret promises. Through alliances never meant to be seen. The battlefield is still there, but increasingly, so are the shadows behind it. Kamose never forgets the letter. How could he? A folded piece of papyrus now sits inside his campaign like a splinter beneath skin. It's not rumor, fear, or imagination. It's proof. And for Kamose, that changes the war. Because wars are one thing, plots are another. And a king can face soldiers in daylight, but whispers, hidden agreements, enemies speaking behind his back while smiling across distance, that settles somewhere deeper. The campaign presses on. Riverbanks blur past beneath hard sunlight. Men sleep badly and march anyway. Spears knock softly against shields with every movement of the boats. Sweat dries against linen. And Kamose strikes north, forcing submission where he can, pressure where he can't. The message to Kush, it never arrived. The alliance Apophis hoped to nurture never materializes, not in any kind of time anyways. Whatever shape the plan is supposed to take dies half-born, interrupted between intention and action. Conspiracies do not need success to change history. Sometimes the discovery alone is enough. Picture Kamose late at night, the fire burning low, the camp quieter now. Most men asleep, the Nile dark beyond sight. Somewhere nearby rests the intercepted letter rolled and tied, no less dangerous now than when first discovered. He stares north, toward his enemy, and maybe, just maybe, towards something larger than one campaign. Because kingdoms fracture slowly, and borders shift. Foreign rulers sometimes settle in and generations adapt. People learn to live divided until one person decides that the division itself is intolerable. For Kamose, the conspiracy confirms something he already feels in his bones. Egypt cannot stay this way. Not split, not negotiated over, not trapped between enemies who speak to one another in secret. One king in Thebes and one king in Avaris. Three powers circling each other like wolves around thinning firelight. Just waiting for the violence. And history moves strangely after moments like this. Kamose himself will not live to see his story finished. Others, especially his successor Ahmose, will carry the struggle forward and eventually drive the Hyksos from Egypt altogether. But, long before reunification, before victories, monuments, or dynasties restored, a courier was stopped on the road. A hidden message was exposed. The conspiracy was discovered before it had the chance to breathe. And here we have another lesson in the history of conspiracy. Sometimes history changes. Not because a plot succeeds, but because someone catches it in time. Centuries later, and far from Egypt, another dangerous idea begins spreading in whispers. Not in royal courts beside the Nile, but among warriors. Men who are armed, and men who are angry. Men who believe power belongs to the wrong people.